In our headlines on this Tuesday afternoon, May 28th, here on the Korean Peninsula. North Korea acknowledges that its attempt back on Monday to place a second satellite into space ended in failure. South Korea and its allies, for their part, have condemned the attempt. Meanwhile, the latest trilateral meeting among South Korea, Japan and China called for regular regional exchanges with a joint declaration that covers cooperation on 6 fronts, namely civilian exchanges, climate change, disaster relief, economic ventures, public health and scientific initiatives. And an Israeli air raid against Rafah on Sunday set ablaze a shelter for displaced Palestinians, killing dozens. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday acknowledged the, quote, tragic mistake. We start with news of North Korea's failed attempt to place a second spy satellite into space Monday night. Our correspondent Peunji has details.
This is the moment when a suspected military reconnaissance satellite launched by North Korea exploded mid-air. The video, released by the South Korean military, was filmed by surveillance equipment on a military patrol vessel deployed to waters northwest of the country. Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff said it detected the launch fired over the West Sea at about 10:44 p.m. on Monday night. But 2 minutes after the launch, it exploded into multiple pieces of debris above North Korean waters. The military said intelligence authorities of Seoul and Washington are currently conducting a detailed analysis of the launch, and that South Korea, the US, and Japan activated a missile warning system by deploying Aegis destroyers to designated areas in advance. North Korea also admitted that its attempt to launch a new military reconnaissance satellite failed when a newly developed rocket engine exploded in midair during the first stage of flight. Citing its Deputy Director General of National Aerospace Technology Administration, the regime's state media said initial analysis showed this was due to a newly developed liquid fuel rocket motor, but other possible causes are being investigated. The attempt came just hours after Pyongyang issued a warning on Monday, saying that it would try to launch a satellite by June 4th, which would have been its second spy satellite in orbit. The Japanese government earlier issued an emergency warning for residents in the south to take cover from the possible threat, before lifting the warning, saying the rocket was not expected to fly over Japanese territory. But the Japanese Defense Minister Minoru Kihara said they would continue to work on monitoring signs of threats and analyzing information, as the North may attempt another launch within the notified period. Peunji, Arirang News.
And amid those very concerns, South Korea and its allies have rebuked the regime's latest launch attempt, reiterating its violation of UN Security Council resolutions. Our Lee Soo-jin reports.
South Korea and the United States have both heavily criticized North Korea's attempt to put another spy satellite into orbit. During a meeting led by the director of the National Security Office, Chang Ho-jin, on Monday night, the launch was condemned as a violation of UN Security Council resolutions, regardless of whether it failed or not. During the meeting, attendees also called the launch an act of provocation that threatened peace and security on the Korean Peninsula, Northeast Asia, and the international community. The U.S. Indo-Pacific Command said in a statement on Monday local time that it condemns the launch as clear violation of several UN Security Council resolutions. The statement also said that the launch involved technologies directly related to North Korea's intercontinental ballistic missile program, and that the U.S.'s defense commitments to South Korea and Japan remain ironclad. Meanwhile, Japan's defense minister Minoru Kihara called the launch a serious challenge to the entire world. North Korea's state media announced that the launch of the satellite carrier rocket failed when it exploded in mid-air during the first stage flight soon after liftoff due to a suspected engine problem. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, Monday's trilateral meeting among South Korea, Japan and China saw participants pledging to put regional cooperation back on track with a joint declaration covering 6 specific areas ranging from civilian exchanges to climate change. Our presidential correspondent Kim Do-yeon fills us in.
Fully restoring and normalizing relations was a key goal for this 9th trilateral summit between South Korea, Japan, and China, which resumed after 4 years and 5 months. And on Monday, President Yoon, as the host of the summit, says it did just that.
오늘을 기점으로 3국 정상회의는 정상화되었고 올해로 25주년을 맞이한 한일 중 협력 체제가 앞으로 더욱 성장해 나갈 수 있는 발판이 마련되었습니다.
They also acknowledged that they share some of the key issues such as aging demographics and supply chain disruptions, and by working together, they can resolve them.
Since the last trilateral summit, the international community has faced diverse, complex and interconnected problems. Additionally, there are significant common issues among our three countries, such as low birth rates and aging populations.
We agree that in the face of new challenges and opportunities, South Korea-China-Japan cooperation must demonstrate new responsibilities and actions.
The summit comes after months of efforts by South Korea to make it happen. And President Yoon, on top of normalization of the relations, has emphasized tangible results for the citizens. In fact, the joint declaration the three adopted laid out the resumption of many dialogues between the three parties on top of specific actions they will take going forward. There were 6 main parts: civilian exchanges, climate change, the economy, public health, science, and disaster relief. Some tangible results were announced through the declaration. For the people-to-people exchange, the three will designate 2025 to 2026 as the year of cultural exchange among the three countries. For climate change response, they will collaborate with Mongolia to reduce dust and sandstorms in East Asia. And in terms of the economic and trade aspect, they will continue discussions to speed up trilateral FTA negotiations. In terms of public health and aging societies, the three will tackle future infectious diseases, and they adopted a separate joint statement on this. For science and tech cooperation, the three will resume the Trilateral Science and Technology Ministers meeting.
이번 회의에서 채택된 공동 선언은 우리 3국이 민생 증진과 영내 평화와 번영을 위해 긴밀히 협력하겠다는 의지를 담고 있습니다.
Next up as the host is Japan, and the leaders agreed that they look forward to the 10th summit without notifying when it will take place. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Also, on Monday, the three countries held a separate business summit with industry insiders to address their shared hopes of bolstering regional trade. Our correspondent Moon Hae-ryan covers these talks.
As neighboring countries, South Korea, Japan and China's economies are closely linked, celebrating 25 years of trilateral cooperation this year. At the 8th edition of a business summit on Monday afternoon in Seoul, the leaders and 240 business heads came together to discuss a wide range of regional topics. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida remarked on the common challenges the countries face, such as aging populations, while Chinese Premier Li Qiang spoke of deepening industrial cooperation as Beijing looks to stabilize its supply chain network. President Yoon commented on the need for the neighbors to respond to global issues together, as well as further developing trade agreements.
3국 간 교역 투자 플랫폼인 RCEP의 활용도를 높이는 동시에 2019년 이후 중단된 한일 중 FTA 협상을 조속히 재개하여 경제 협력 기반을 업그레이드해야 합니다.
Accounting for nearly a quarter of the world's GDP, the three countries have attempted to facilitate easier trading in the past. Negotiations on a free trade agreement began in 2012, with 16 rounds of talks since then. FTAs abolished tariffs and barriers, but progress on a trilateral agreement has been slow for a variety of reasons. The last negotiations were in 2019, and factors including COVID-19 and Beijing-Washington tensions have hindered progress. Other economic partnerships, such as the China-led CPTPP and Japan-led RCEP, have also diverted attention away from the trilateral FTA. However, economic relations between Seoul and Tokyo have improved, with resumed finance leader talks last year ending a 7-year hiatus. But Japan falls behind the likes of the United States and China when it comes to South Korea's exports. And an expert explains why FTA negotiations between the two have been slow and what Seoul is attempting to achieve through a free trade agreement with Tokyo.
Even though Korean products are pretty good and less expensive, they are sticking to their own product. So main target of Korean, government and Korean corporations are, penetrating into Japanese market.
As for trade relations with China, it was formerly the country's biggest destination for exports before the US took over. Data from the Bank of Korea show that the value of outbound shipments to the US overtook those to China for the first time in 21 years in the first quarter of this year. But the Sino-Korean FTA that was set in motion to cover goods trade could now be expanded to the services sector to include tourism and culture.
The expansion of free trade agreements in other areas like services and investment, and the interaction of people that are most important, and that is in the traditional kind of interest of free trade agreements. So I think it is a necessary and a natural process of development.
With these negotiations between Seoul and Beijing scheduled for next month, and Yoon's urging to resume FTA talks, attempts to strengthen economic ties are definitely underway. 문혜련, Arirang News.
President Seoul is poised to play host to his counterpart from the United Arab Emirates, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. While the official welcoming ceremony will take place tomorrow, that is Wednesday, the two leaders will begin their engagement later on this Tuesday evening. According to the presidential office here, on the agenda are plans to bolster partnership in key arenas ranging from energy to defense. The two-day state visit marks the first by the president of the UAE to Korea. Indeed, this inaugural state visit by UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan is fueling much anticipation about prospects of greater partnership between Seoul and Abu Dhabi. Our senior correspondent Oh Soo-young covers these prospects.
Ahead of President Yoon Suk-yeol's bilateral summit with United Arab Emirates President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan on Wednesday, experts and the media are expecting a detailed follow-up on their pledge last year to further advance their special strategic partnership. On Monday, Emirates news agency said the two countries' partnership promises to unlock new frontiers, noting that trade and investment between the two sides have already seen a significant increase. Bilateral trade in non-oil sectors hit $5.3 billion in 2023, a 12.5% increase on year. But there's more room for growth as both countries move towards the post-oil era.
With South Korea's diverse areas of expertise, the potential cooperation is limitless. Nuclear energy, semiconductors, reusable batteries, automobiles, biodefense, and aerospace. Also, the UAE is in need of a strong manufacturing base. In this regard, establishing a South Korean industrial complex would build R&D centers or factories in the country. This could help the UAE reshape its industrial structure to support and expand exports of its domestic products to the world.
During the summit in Abu Dhabi last year, the UAE leader promised to invest $30 billion in South Korea's strategic industries. The two governments in October concluded a bilateral trade pact removing tariffs on over 91% of all items traded over the next 10 years. Seoul says on top of furthering cooperation in trade, energy and nuclear power, defense will be another major summit agenda on Wednesday.
Due to the threat posed by North Korea, South Korea has made strenuous efforts to achieve self-sufficiency in national defense. Following the United States reducing its military presence in the Middle East, the UAE has been aiming to reduce its security dependence on one particular country. Instead of engaging in only weapon sales, South Korea and the UAE would be able to reduce various geopolitical risks by jointly developing their arms industries and engaging more strategic and joint operations together.
Yoon's office has said the UAE is the only country in the Middle East with which South Korea has established a special strategic partnership, likening their solidarity to an alliance.
Rather than engaging in competition, the two countries must join together in solidarity in order to maximize both their national interests. Korea's technology and human resources, combined with the UAE's capital, enterprising spirit, and global nature, both countries can become pivotal force through their exemplary case of solidarity, encouraging peace and prosperity across both Middle East and Northeast Asia.
With the first ever visit of an Emirati leader to Seoul, Emirates news agency said the two sides are poised to demonstrate what development and prosperity paragons can do as partners. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
On the local political front, the 21st National Assembly is holding the last plenary session of its term this afternoon. On the agenda is a vote on the bill calling for a special probe into the death of a Marine. Now, this marks the second time the bill is being addressed at the Parliament, as its first approval was vetoed by the President. The opposition Democratic Party has been urging for an independent investigation of potential government interference in the military investigation on the death of the young Marine during a rescue operation following floods last year. In other news, an Israeli air raid against Rafah on Sunday set ablaze a shelter for displaced Palestinians, killing dozens. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday acknowledged the, quote, tragic mistake. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
At least 45 people were killed and more than 200 others injured after an Israeli airstrike at a refugee camp in Rafah. In response to the casualties, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called the strike a tragic mistake.
In Rafah, we already evacuated about 1 million non-combatant residents, and despite our utmost effort not to harm non-combatants, something unfortunately went tragically wrong. We are investigating the incident and will reach conclusions because this is our policy.
Netanyahu added that while every non-combatant that is hurt is a tragedy, for Hamas, it's a strategy. According to the Gaza Health Ministry and Palestinian medics, most of the casualties were women and children. Washington has long warned Israel to make sure there are limited civilian casualties in Rafah. But with dozens killed in the recent airstrike, the White House is now assessing whether Israel has crossed the line. U.S. officials speaking to media outlet Axios said that the Biden administration is assessing if the airstrike is a violation of what President Biden called a red line, adding that a humanitarian crisis due to the mass displacement of civilians from Rafah could also constitute a violation. Meanwhile, the EU has decided to resume its mission to directly manage and monitor the Rafah border crossing for the first time in 17 years. Joseph Borrell, the EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security, announced Monday that an agreement was reached on the revival of the EU Border Assistance Mission at a meeting of foreign ministers of the 27 EU countries held in Brussels. The mission was first organized in 2005 by the EU to be dispatched to border areas marred in conflict to monitor, control, and manage the flow of people and goods as a neutral third party. It was dispatched to the Rafah checkpoint, but their activities were temporarily suspended after about 2 years when Hamas took complete control of the Gaza Strip in June 2007. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
In related news, the UN Security Council is set to hold an emergency meeting Tuesday afternoon in response to the tragic event in Rafah. The meeting was reportedly requested by Algeria, a non-permanent member representing the Arab region. The civilian casualties said to stand at well above 200 as of Monday, and UN human rights authorities claim the incident reaffirms the lack of safe refuge in Gaza amid Israeli strikes.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. Yemen's Iran-backed Houthis announced on Monday that they successfully launched aerial attacks against 3 ships in the Indian Ocean and the Red Sea, as well as on 2 U.S. destroyers in the Red Sea. Via a televised speech, Houthis military spokesperson Yahya Sari named the attacked ships as American Largo Desert in the Indian Ocean, the Israeli ship MSC Michela in the Indian Ocean, and the Minerva Lisa in the Red Sea. Sari did not name the 2 U.S. destroyers, and none of the ships have confirmed any damage. Sari added that the attacks are to support the oppressed Palestinian people until the aggression is stopped and the siege on the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip is lifted. The Houthis have carried out multiple aerial attacks against international ships in the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean region since last November. Russia will build a small nuclear power plant in Uzbekistan, a first in post-Soviet Central Asia. That's according to Uzbek President Shavkat Mirziyoyev at a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday. Putin, who is on his 3rd foreign trip since his re-election, said Russia would put $400 million into a joint investment of $500 million to finance the nuclear projects in Uzbekistan. The Kremlin said Russia's Rosatom will build up to 6 nuclear reactors with a capacity of up to 55 megawatts. Although Uzbekistan and its neighbor Kazakhstan are both producers of uranium, the Uzbek project will be the first of the 5 ex-Soviet Central Asian countries to construct nuclear power plants. Moving over to South Asia, where at least 16 people had been killed as of Monday as Cyclone Remal crashed into coastal parts of India and southern Bangladesh. Bangladeshi Minister for Disaster Management, Mohibur Rahman, said that at least 10 died in the country's southwestern port area of Mongla and that 3.75 million people had been affected. In India's West Bengal, a senior official from the state government confirmed that at least 6 civilians had died, including 3 by electrocution. Cyclone Remal made landfall on Sunday with gales of up to 110 kilometers per hour, accompanied by tidal surges and torrential rain. Authorities said some 8.4 million people live in the cyclone's path. A 60-year-old Argentinian woman challenging the youth-obsessed norms of beauty competed in the annual Miss Universe contest's regional stage in Argentina. Alejandra Marisa Rodriguez, a legal advisor for a hospital in La Plata, south of the capital Buenos Aires, came short of winning the Miss Argentina crown at the competition on Saturday, but won Best Face. Rodriguez's inclusion attracted the attention of the world's media as it came in the first year since the Miss Universe beauty pageant scrapped its long-standing age limit. The contest, which began in 1952, only allowed women between the ages of 18 and 28 to compete until last year. Kim Si-young, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. After a nice break from the early summer heat, the warmth returns for western parts of the country. But the East Coast is having a big drop in highs, hovering around 20 degrees Celsius this afternoon with that easterly winds. And there will also be spotty rain for parts of the East Coast and passing rain for inland regions of Jeollanam-do and Gyeongsang-namdo province during the day today. Meanwhile, tons of sunshine is in the forecast for the rest of the country. UV rays will be high to very high in many parts of the country with a strong breeze. Seoul gets up to 26 degrees, Daejeon topping out at 25 degrees, and Daegu and Busan will also see a high of 25 degrees Celsius this afternoon. And air quality will be decent nationwide all day today. Then we are looking at a week of sunny skies and warm temperatures. Take advantage of the weather before it gets too warm, not to mention weather experts are predicting a scorching summer heat this year. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
Right, and those are the top stories at this hour here in Korea. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session, and today we speak about Korea's new space center. Do stay with us.
Lotte takes a new leap beyond its boundaries. Our change will lead to better lives for all. New Lotte, the power of a better world. New today, better tomorrow. Lotte.
Children's laughter, hope, dream. K-animation belongs in them. Interesting and valuable story that transcends between everyday life and dream. Surprising spectacle where imagination becomes real. An array of subjects catering from infants to adolescents. For our story to reach all corners of the world. K-animation makes healthy laughter for children.
The Korea Aerospace Administration officially opened its doors earlier on Monday in Sachon City in Gyeongsang-namdo Province with a pledge to promote private sector-led ventures into space. Accordingly, on this edition of Issues and Insiders, we cover this new administration's space agenda and more. Welcome to Issues and Insiders. It's Tuesday here in Korea, and I'm Min Sun-hee. President Yoon Suk-yeol spoke of setting up a new space agency here in Korea back in November 2022. Well, that plan became a reality starting this week, and for more, I have Kang Sung-ju, an astronomer, live on the line. Sung-ju, Dr. Kang, welcome.
Thank you for joining me.
I also have Kwon So with us. So it's good to have you here.
Happy to be here, Sunny, as always.
Right, then let's start in the studio. So let's begin with some information about the mission of this new space administration.
Well, we will be hearing the acronym CASA a lot from now on, which stands for Korea Aerospace Administration. And probably many people will automatically think of NASA. Well, this is Korea's version of NASA. Korea on Monday launched its first public agency entirely dedicated to the space industry with an ambitious goal of becoming a powerhouse in this field. Sachon City in Gyeongsang-namdo Province is home to the new establishment. CASA's four main roles can be divided into setting up national aerospace policies, carrying out R&D and fostering talents in the space sector, promoting industry and international cooperation. These duties before were scattered across different ministries and bodies, but now CASA will comprehensively take care of them. Another big responsibility of the agency is to support the private sector to lead development in the field of space. So far, Korea's space projects have mainly been led by the government. The creation of CASA was a campaign pledge by President Yoon Suk-yeol, who has been continuously calling on greater investment and efforts in space-related programs. The administration was built under a special law passed by Parliament in January. 758.9 billion won, or roughly $556 million have been set as a budget for CASA this year. The agency is looking to foster more than 2,000 space-related companies and generate some 500,000 new jobs. And eventually, Korea is aiming to become one of the top 5 space powerhouses in the world, currently ranking 7th. But they say that there is a big gap between the top 6 and Korea.
Right. And against that backdrop then, speaking within your capacity as a space pundit, Dr. Kang, what would you say is the significance of this latest establishment?
The establishment of the Korea Aerospace Administration, as known as CASA, is a huge step forward for Korea's space ambitions. It shows that Korea is very serious about being a leader in space technology and exploration. CASA will be the central point for coordinating all space activities, making sure efforts are not wasted and the resources are used efficiently. It will also set the strategic directions for Korea's space project, from launching satellites to exploring deep spaces. CASA will bring together academia or industry and government to create an environment where the innovation can flourish. In the long term, CASA is expected to boost Korea's tech capabilities, grow the space industry to stimulate the economy, and improve the national security, such as advanced satellite technology.
Right, and before we advance any further with regard to the mission of Casa, so could we take some time now to look at some of the remarkable advances that Korea itself has been making in space exploration?
Sure. Nuri and Danuri are the key projects that describe Korea's most recent success in the space industry. And behind these cute names are landmark achievements. In June 2022, Korea proudly deployed a satellite into orbit with its homegrown three-stage space rocket Nuri, or the Korea Space Launch Vehicle 2. This was the milestone that made Korea the 7th country in the world with its own launch vehicle that is capable of carrying satellites weighing over 1 ton. Weeks after, in August 2022, the nation's first unmanned lunar orbiter Danuri was successfully launched as it entered its target orbit of the moon. It completed its long-distance data transmission tests and sent texts, images, and videos from outer space. Of course, there were trials and errors throughout the years, but given that Korea's space development takeoff just dates back to the early 1990s, significant progress has been made over the past 3 decades. So let me name a few more key events. In 1989, the government-led Korea Aerospace Research Institute was launched, marking the beginning of Korea's research and development in the aerospace industry. 1992, the first satellite, the Korean Institute of Technology Satellite 1, or A, was launched, and it also went by the nickname 우리 별, or Our Star. And the next one that I want to mention is very familiar. The name Arirang 1 was the first Korean multi-purpose satellite that was launched in 1999. 10 years later, Korea opened the Naro Space Center in Kohung, and the 2000s really was when the space technology and development here in Korea started to speed up.
Right, indeed. Moving forward then, Dr. Kang, the inaugural head of the Korea Aerospace Administration, Yoon Young-bin, has highlighted the importance of a private sector-led space campaign. What are your thoughts on this initiative, and what tasks need to be tackled to make this a reality?
Honestly speaking, I'm totally on board with the new administrator, the Yoon's focus on private sector-led space exploration. Historically, history has shown that the private sector is great at driving innovation and efficiency, often achieving incredible things at lower cost than government programs. To make this happen, there are a few key tasks to tackle. The first one, what I think is we need a strong legal and regulatory framework that encourages private investment in space while ensuring the safety and international compliance. Second, we should foster entrepreneurship through the grants or subsidies and tax breaks to get the startups and small businesses into the space industry. Next, the public-private partnership can leverage the government resources and expertise while allowing the private companies to innovate and take the risks. So we also need to build the infrastructure like launch site and testing facilities, such as Japan. Japan has the infrastructure for private sectors, like a launch site. So finally, what I'm thinking is promoting the collaboration between the private sector and the research institution run by the government can speed up the technological advancement and commercialization of the new space technology.
Right, I see. Good to know then. Meanwhile, so what can you tell us about the makeup of the Korea Aerospace Administration? Who are the people set to lead this new entity?
Around 110 employees have kicked off their duties at Casa with its launch, but more will be hired. So the currently set number is 293 employees in total. The inaugural chief or administrator of the agency, who we just talked about, is Seoul National University University Aerospace Engineering Professor Yoon Young-bin. He has been appointed by President Yoon Suk-yeol last month, referring to Gaza as a dream of many people involved in the aerospace sector. Administrator Yoon expressed his excitement as well as heavy responsibility on the agency's opening day on Monday. He described the establishment of the agency as an, quote, important stepping stone in leading Korea to become a full-fledged space economy powerhouse. Now, other significant figures who will lead the new body are John Lee, a retired senior executive from NASA with some 30 years of experience at the U.S. Space Agency, who will be in charge of research and development programs, and No Kyung-won, a senior official at the Ministry of Science and ICT, who's taking the role as Gaza's deputy administrator. Among others working at the new agency are public officials from the Science Ministry and experts from various space-related institutions. Gaza is now expected to fill the rest of the roughly two-thirds of spots in earnest, with heads of some crucial divisions yet to be hired.
Right, so those are the people who are poised to lead the Korea Aerospace Administration. And that being said then, Dr. Kang, what efforts do you suppose should the entity seek to make to ensure its competence and productivity?
For Gaza to be competent and productive in this multi-pronged approach, first and foremost, attracting the top talent is the key, I think. This means offering a competitive pay, which is working on as assigned right now, and continuous professional development to bring in the best scientists or engineers or administrative staff. Partnering with leading universities to create a pipeline of skilled graduate students can support this. Second, Gaza should invest heavily in R&D to stay at the cutting edge of the space technology. This means setting up state-of-the-art research facilities and fostering a culture of innovation. Next one is, I think the Gaza must set clear, measurable goals and timelines for its individual project to stay focused and driven. Implementing a project management system for regular review and adjustment can keep project on the track. So securing adequate and stable funding is also crucial, definitely, which may involve advocating for more government funding and exploring alternative sources like an international partnership and private investment. Lastly, the promoting a collaborative environment within Gaza and with external partners such as in other institutions or the academia or any other external partners can boost up the productivity through the open communication and shared vision.
Right, Dr. Kang, as you mentioned, the Korea Aerospace Administration has also spoken about the importance of setting up partnerships with its foreign counterparts. What would you say is the importance of such collaboration? And do you see very active exchanges between Korea and its global partners on the space front moving forward?
Yes. The collaboration is absolutely essential in space ventures because of how complex, expensive, and risky space missions are. By partnering with other countries, Korea can share the financial burden and tap into a diverse pool of the knowledge, technology, and expertise. This collaboration approach not only reduces the risk, but also speeds up the innovation by combining different strengths and perspectives. Danuri is a very good example of this, I believe. Joint mission can lead to breakthrough in satellite technology, space exploration, and scientific research that would be tough for a single nation to achieve alone. I expect Korea to actively cooperate with its global partners, especially countries with established space programs like US, Europe, or Japan. These partnerships can take various forms like joint missions, technology transfer agreements, or the collaborative research project. engaging in international space forums and other organizations can also help Korea align with global standards and practices, further enhancing its capabilities and reputation in the space community.
Right. And speaking about the space community, so what can you tell us about some of the planned missions for the near future?
Sonny, in the nearest future, we're expecting the 4th launch of the domestically grown space rocket Nuri in the second half of 2025. Earlier, I mentioned the successful landmark 2022 launch, which was the second round. But just last year in May, we also had the 3rd round with the first ever proper mission completed, putting 8 practical satellites into orbit. So the 4th mission is to send next-generation mid-sized satellites into space, and with that, to stabilize Nuri's performance and step up its mission completion capabilities. Also, in 2026 and 2027, microsatellites are scheduled to be launched under the Nuri program. Going a few more years ahead, what the government had previously announced as well, but what's now become a concrete role by CASA as well, is the plan to land a domestic spacecraft on the moon's surface in 2032. A little more into the future, Korea is also aiming to explore Mars in 2045. Why 2045? That date coincides with Korea's 100th anniversary of its Liberation Day. Next generation rockets are also in development, with plans to be launched starting in 2030. Now, Sunny, just briefly before the program, we talked about what we're personally looking forward to. Actually, I come to think of, I have a trip on the moon on my bucket list. So maybe I could do that from here in Korea and not have to travel to other countries where such space travel is already possible.
Right, a commercial trip to the moon then. And Dr. Kang, this is an impromptu question, but when do you suppose that is, will Korea perhaps be able to ensure commercial trips to the moon for its people?
I think for the South Korea, for the international, I think it won't be a long time. I think probably 2040s or something like that, and I think sometime soon will be the best time for learning the sending of people to the space exploration, like a space trip. And right now, a lot of people are just having a lot of money to spend a space trip. But I think the price will go down as the space technology will advance, and then soon enough, I think, probably, I think 2040s or so.
Make it more affordable for us all then.
Right.
Exactly, great to hear that.
Right, and that's one of my bucket list as well.
Right, good to know. All right, Dr. Kang, Korea, it hopes to play a leading role, of course, in space exploration in the years ahead. That being said, what policies do you propose to facilitate this particular goal?
For Korea to become a leader, one of the leading players in space exploration, several comprehensive policies, I think, need to be put in place. The first one, increasing government investment in space R&D is very, very essential, and as well as education. This includes funding for missions and projects, as well as the building and maintaining necessary infrastructures like a launch site, research labs, and testing facilities. Actually, the testing facility is very important. And the second one is creating a favorable regulatory environment that supports innovation while ensuring safety and international compliance is very crucial. This means policy that make it easier for private companies to enter the space sector, protect intellectual property, because this technology has to be developed by each own country, not very exchangeable. Third one is promoting public-private partnership can leverage the strength of both sectors. I mean, the space, the government-led and the private-led. The government can provide funding and strategic directions while private companies drive innovation and efficiency has to be developed because they have to make the money anyways. So investing in education and workforce development is also very vital. This includes promoting a STEM education at all levels, not only for the students' levels, but all levels, providing scholarships for space-related studies, and offering the training programs to develop skilled workers, and so on. Finally, engaging in an international collaboration and actively participating in global space initiative will help, I think, the Korea access new technologies and share the best practices and build its reputation as a reliable and capable partner in space exploration, I believe.
Right, of course, to ensure productive ventures into space then. All right, Dr. Kang, as always, thank you very much for your time and your thoughts. And so here in the studio, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Right, well, on that note, we end Tuesday's edition of Issues and Insiders. Thank you for watching. See you same time tomorrow, that is Wednesday.
What can I say? This place is amazing. Let's do it.
Oh my God, what an investment people did at this place, because it's like a huge place.
New thoughts, new emotions to come in. A place to kind of, I felt like I was able to flush out my tension in my body, my stress or whatever.
Cool.
저희 아이가 에너지가 너무 많아가지고 좀 신나게 하려고 하는데 오히려 와이프가 훨씬 더 좋아하는 것 같아서 여기가 바로 저희 가족이 진짜 찾던 곳이에요.
Felt like the inner child in me